In this episode of the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast, Mr. Mavs Draft, Richard Stayman is back again. And in this episode, we are going to discuss the top prospects in the ACC. Now, in my opinion, the ACC has a little bit more talent than the Big Ten. So we're going to find out who Richard believes is the top prospect in the Atlantic Coast Conference. Stay tuned. Big shout out to each and every person that has made the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast your first listen of the day. Thank you for choosing this podcast to start your week. And this episode is brought to you by none other than Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On NBA for $20 off your first purchase. I am your host, Rafael Barlowe, the director of scouting for NBA Big Board and the founder of NBA Draft Junkies. And like I mentioned in the open, my co-host for today is Richard Stayman. And college basketball is finally here. The first games are going to tip off within hours. And so the ACC is a conference that has traditionally been strong. You got your Dukes, you got your North Carolinas, and it's just been a strong conference as long as I can remember. And this year is no different. So who is, and I think I may have I don't know. I was going to say, I think I have an idea who it is, but then right when I said it, I was like, no, that can't be it. So I'm just going to let you, I'm not going to even try to guess. Who is your top prospect in the ACC?
Well, I'm curious. Now I want to hear who you thought it was.
The first thought that came to my mind was Filipowski. That was the first one, because I know you were pretty high on Filipowski.
Yeah, I've got him as my second. I've got his teammate as my number one, which is Tyrese Proctor. I'm pretty high on him. I think we saw a lot of flashes towards the end of the year as he got more comfortable, which in general was that whole Duke team, right? Like even Lively, it took a while to get it acclimated. And I think those two went hand in hand. I think Tyrese Proctor with a full summer, a second year, I think he's going to break out as one of the best guards in the country.
I agree 100%. I'm a Tyrese Proctor supporter. He got off to a terrible start to start the season last year. I think he was shooting like 35% from the floor in his first 12 games. And in my opinion, at the end of the season, I think that he was just as responsible for Duke's turnaround as Derek Lively. I mean, Lively was getting it done on the defensive end, but when Duke needed a basket, I felt like Proctor was their best shot creator. And then even in that NCAA tournament loss against Tennessee, I thought he showcased his full offensive arsenal in that game. I love the size, just the offensive creativity, the upside as a shot maker. I think the shooting is a lot better than the numbers suggest. And before last season, I thought that his best attributes were his shooting and his playmaking. The shot making kind of surprised me a little bit. So if he can put all of that together this season, I don't see why he won't be a top 10 pick.
Yeah, I mean, even the general shot creation was strong at the NBA Academy too before he came over to Duke. And also, I think a lot of people forget this. This was supposed to be his freshman year. He reclassified into 2023. So, 2022. So I think that is a big thing to keep in mind. He's still young. He's ahead of the curve.
You think so? I think he's actually with his age group.
Oh, okay. So
I'm not
went
mistaken.
Back into,
so
gotcha.
I think last year would have normally been his freshman year, but I guess I don't know if he reclassified back. But if I look at his age, if I'm not mistaken, he's about the right age. It wasn't like he was young last year.
Fair. Okay. Yeah, just more an experience where I think it was a little bit of a shock. A lot of these guys who reclassified, no matter, the context, I think a lot of them do struggle at first. And then, like you said, he picked it up.
Yep. All right. Number two. Is it Filipowski?
Yeah, it's Filipowski. I feel like he's going to compete for player of the year. He's a sophomore. He's big. He shoots. He's more mobile than he's given credit for. I think he can also see the floor well. How well all of that comes together in the NBA, it's a question mark, but I think there's enough flashes to say, he could be this guy who can stretch the floor, pass on the move, and he can hold his own defensively. He may not ever be a lockdown guy, but he may also never be like a true liability on the perimeter.
Yeah, I mean, he had a strong freshman year. I mean, a really strong freshman year, despite the fact that I think it was like a clunky fit with Lively. He didn't shoot the ball well from three, and they say he was playing with two bad hips. So if
Yeah.
the injury concerns are out the way and he's healthy and he's a little bit more mobile than he was last year and he shoots the ball better, I'd have to say he would probably be the only guy that I think off the top of my head, maybe like a Hunter Dickinson, that can challenge Zach Edey for Player of the Year.
Yep.
Which is not necessarily like an NBA prospect award, but just college Player of the Year. I think it's between those three. And isn't it crazy that the three guys, at least in my opinion, who could be Player of the Year, are like traditional bigs in a sense. They're like big men.
College bigs, the big man game, the post game is not going away in college.
Yep. It's weird because the post game is not going away, but I feel like the spacing in college basketball was bad, which can make the post play a little bit more difficult. But no, Filipowski is the guy that I'm not as high on him as you. I know like last year, I think you would have taken him pretty high in last year's draft. If you would have taken him, where did you have him at? You had a mid-first round?
Yeah, I had him at the end of the first, like 20s.
At the end of the
20s.
First. Okay.
Yeah, like I'd say like mid-late, 20s.
So how much do you think his draft stock can improve in what is considered a weaker draft, and you're expecting him to have a stronger year? Just based off of what I mentioned, he should be healthier in the outside shooting, and I think the fit is a little bit better. So how much can his draft stock improve in your opinion?
I think a lot. I mean, you kind of touched on it. He didn't shoot well at all, and one of his main selling points is his jump shot. It's beautiful. Like, it is one of the prettiest jump shots you'll see for a 7+ footer. And I think that will dictate a lot of efficiency. And on top of that, if he can lead Duke to a really just strong winning season as a sophomore, I think he's got a chance to go lottery. Just a lot of intangibles there in that regard of, if he's winning a lot of games, carrying the team, being the first option, I think that's going to go a long way. And obviously it's hard to be a first option as a forward in Duke, so that's a little bit relative. But in terms of just holding the most gravity and things like that, I think he could go a long way just with improved efficiency and more winning. Any concerns about their guard play just by them being small? A little bit. I like their guards for the most part. I think Tyrese Proctor can get him set up. Defensively, it's going to hurt them, I think. That's where Filipowski gets hurt, because I don't feel like any of those guys are true stoppers. I honestly can't recall Jeremy Roach's game because it's been so long since I've dived into him. But at least for Proctor, I don't see him locking guys up. Caleb Foster, who knows? I think the help that he'll get is a lot of Mark Mitchell help. All right, so far this is an All Duke podcast. Who is the third best prospect, in your opinion, in the ACC? So I have, in terms of most talented, I think there's a clear-cut third, and he is on Duke, and I just dropped his name, Caleb Foster. I don't think he will end up being in this draft just because Jeremy Roach is in front of him, Tyrese Proctor's in front of him. I don't think it makes a lot of sense for him to be in this draft. So I'm going to exclude him for that regard, and I'll go with Judah Mintz is somebody I really like. I think with him, the shooting is the big flaw, right? He shot 30% from three, but I don't think it really tells the whole story. In the first half of the season, the first 16 games, he shot 20% from three on 2 attempts a game. The final 16 games, he shot 39% on 2.3 attempts. The free throw percentage isn't bad. It's at 75%. Like, it's about what you want to see. He's good in mid-range. I feel like he's going to have a much better jump shooting season, and that's going to make him explode. And then also, we don't know what the defense is going to be like now that he's not playing in pure zone. Yeah, I had a question about Foster. So who do you think gets the starting 9 between Foster and Jared McCain? Wait, with Foster and who? McCain. Oh, I think McCain. I think he's easier to play off ball. Even though he's a little bit undersized for that role, I think he's easier just to be fit into any lineup. Okay. Yeah, I like Judah Mintz. Do you think he's a 1 or you think he's like a combo? Combo. I don't know. He has the abilities. I don't know if he can be that floor general, and that's kind of why I'm pushing away from a pure 1. Yeah, because I like the passing. I mean, he is a pretty crafty, flashy passer. I love how he can get his own shot off the dribble. I like the floater.
I said the creativity, shifty ball handler. He's fearless, but just the shooting was concerning to me earlier in the year. Like you said, it got a little bit better. But he's definitely someone that I'm looking to see. I feel like he's just not getting a lot of attention in this draft cycle right now. It seems like he's been a little bit forgotten about.
Yeah, I don't know why too, because he declared for the draft. He was at the combine. Like I thought some of that hype would carry over, but it appears not. I think he's somebody that could easily explode early on though, and just be the guy that sticks around for a bit because of that.
Yep, I agree. All right, when we return, we're going to find out who are the next batch of prospects that Richard really likes coming out of the ACC. But let's talk about Game Time, because Game Time is, in my opinion, the best app to get tickets, because you shouldn't have to worry about buying tickets, because Game Time is fast. It is the easiest way to buy tickets, whether it's for sports, music, comedy, and theater events. They have these great last minute deals. They have all-in prices. To me, that's so important. They have the all-inclusive prices, so you're not surprised when you're checking out. And they also give you views of your seat, and they have a best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. They have last minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals, and they're easy to find and easy to buy for just any event in your area. And they also have a lowest price guarantee, like I mentioned, which includes event cancellation protection. So if you have like a favorite artist that you want to attend their concert, but they have a track record of not showing up, or there's something going on, Game Time has an event cancellation protection. They even have job loss protection. So if you lose your job and you need the money back, Game Time will look out. All you have to do is download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Again, there's terms that apply, but just create an account and use the redeem code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON NBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Once again, big shout out to each and every person that has made the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast your first listen of the day. We've covered the Big 10. We've covered the Big 12. We've covered the Pac-12. And now we're covering the ACC. Did I miss one?
SEC.
Right. Oh, yeah. We did. Well, we have to redo the SEC. That's why I'm slipping. We have to redo. Let me say this. We don't have to redo the SEC. Me and my brother went on a tangent, and it ended up being just the Kentucky episode. So we have to do another episode on the SEC. We got to cover the Riley Klugels and the Ryland Griffins and Trevon Brazile and those guys and other guys in the conference. So that's why I was like, wait a minute. I feel like we got most of them, but we have to do an SEC episode. So that will be coming up this week. We still got the Big East and even the mid-majors. But let's get back to the ACC. So we've talked about Tyrese Proctor. We've talked about Kyle Filipowski, Judah Mintz, Caleb Foster a little bit. Who's next on your list?
It is a very close race between two ACC guards. One's an experienced one, and one is an incoming freshman that also reclassified. So I technically have Elliot Cadeau higher. The other guy, though, is Reece Beekman. I really like both of those guards. Elliot Cadeau, for those who haven't seen him, is going to be one of the best playmakers, I feel like, among the freshman class. There are so many games in EYBL where he had double-digit assists to one turnover. It's absurd. So I really like his game. He's just a little bit small. That's why I have him lower.
Do you think his size is going to play a role in where he's drafted?
Yeah, I think so. You look at, because he's listed, I think, as 6'1". I feel like he's gonna get knocked for that. It's tough how many guys under 6'2" have gone lottery unless they've been truly just elite. And I don't know. It's gonna be tough at North Carolina too for him to shine there. I feel like that in general isn't a spot that guys shine as one and dones, and also just given the fact that they're an experienced team, it may not be the greatest fit for year one. So, but I do think he's a one and done.
He's going to be, I don't want to call it a case study, but a very interesting study this year. Me and my brother had a podcast about it a few weeks back where, We talked about like Kennedy Chandler. And I don't know why Kennedy Chandler is not in the league right now. He shot 38% from three as a freshman at Tennessee. He signed at the time, I believe it was like the largest guaranteed contract for a second round pick.
Yep.
Whatever reason, so it didn't work out in Memphis with the hustle, played for the Nets in Summer League. And to my knowledge, I don't even know if he's on the G League team right now. And then you had Sharife Cooper, who statistically had a phenomenal half season at Auburn. Well, maybe phenomenal is a stretch, but the accounting numbers were pretty good, except the turnovers were pretty high. But we knew the knock on Sharife outside of his size was that he couldn't shoot. But even Sharife has been very productive in the G League. I think at one point he was averaging like 24, 25, maybe 26 points per game in the G League. And he didn't even get a two-way this year. He signed an Exhibit 10 deal. So on one hand, you can say like the NBA is really off small guards. But then I guess you can say Darius Garland was a high pick as a small guard, even though I think he's bigger than those guys. He's definitely bigger than Sharife. I think Garland is bigger than Cadeau. Trae Young is a small guard, but I still think Trae is bigger than Cadeau and Kennedy Chandler and so on. So anyway, I said all that to say this. I don't know even if Cadeau has a great year, I don't know if his size will scare teams away, especially in today's NBA where you're switching. And I feel like if you're going to be a small guard, you have to be really dynamic on offense to make up for it. Now, Cadeau does have the talent to be like really brilliant on offense. I mean, he's a phenomenal passer, great space creator. He can shoot, very good athlete. I used to have the stats on my top of my head, but I think he had 12 dunks in the EYBL this year.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, I feel like I saw that too, because there were times where he would just pop in traffic. It wasn't all in transition.
No.
It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I was at a game when it was in Dallas, and so I was at the game. I was watching him. I think I might have turned my head for a second. I just heard the whole crowd erupt. And then, it's not like the NBA or college game. You can look up at the scoreboard to see a replay. If you miss it in the AAU tournament, you just kind of miss it. You have to wait till somebody posts it on their phone. But they told me Cadeau just made a quick dribble move and went down the lane in traffic and finished with a dunk. And I think for a lot of people that weren't familiar with his game or his resume, they were just really caught off guard with how small he is and how explosive of a leaper he is. So I said all that to say this. We haven't really seen a guard, and I don't think he's 6 foot. We haven't seen a guard 6 foot and under get drafted in the first round recently. So to me, this year is going to it could determine if small guards are really like something that NBA teams don't really value. And I had this conversation briefly with an agent, and they were more so talking about Aiden Holloway at Auburn. And it was two agents and they work for the same agency. So one guy was asking my opinion and I mentioned it, and then like the head agent, like the top dog at the agency, has negotiated hundreds of millions of contracts. He says, "How tall is he?" And I say his height. He says, "No, the NBA is not going to draft someone that small in the first round." So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Cadeau. Would you take him as a first round pick if he has the season that you are anticipating?
I think he's got to have like an unbelievably efficient year, like 3-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, I should say, 45+% from the field, 35 from three. Like he's got to have all the indicators, right? And I don't know if the volume matters that much, but the per 40 numbers are going to be a lot. I think he's somebody that it's going to come down to the advanced stats. If the advanced stats are strong, I would probably say end of first isn't out of reach, especially because Kennedy Chandler was 2022, right? Or is he 21? He was 22. That class wasn't like super strong. 2024 is less. I do think that he could sneak into the first round and be that like very strong exception to the rule.
Yeah, I mean, he has what the other guys. Well, I don't know. I don't know like what he has that Kennedy Chandler didn't have, because I thought Kennedy Chandler played well. And so I think the only thing that stopped him from being a first round pick was his height. But I don't know. There may be something more to it, because like I said, it's surprising to see a guy that was like a McDonald's All-American, had a good freshman year, signed like a large contract for a second rounder with guaranteed money, and within 12 months he is unemployed. So I don't know if there's more going on behind the scenes. I have no idea. I don't want to speculate, but I think it's pretty weird. All right, that was kind of a long Elliot Cadeau segment. When we return, we're going to round out Richard's top, or the remaining top prospects in the ACC. Stay tuned. All right, before we wrap up this episode, let's talk about FanDuel, which is America's #1 sports book. And you can score early in the NBA and NFL season with FanDuel, because if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there is not a better time to get in on the action. Because right now, new customers, if you are a new customer, you get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. And the app is so easy to use, and there's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, overs, unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/locked-on and kick off the NFL season, because FanDuel is the official partner of the NFL and Locked On. All right, last segment. Who are the remaining top NBA prospects in the ACC? Now, ACC is a strong conference, and I know every episode we've done so far with the previews, somebody says, hey, how is this person not on there? So Kylan Boswell was left off the Pac-12 list. There's a few other people that have commented wondering why wasn't this person talked about. So I'm sure that's going to happen here in the ACC, because I think top to bottom, you can make a case and say this is, maybe somebody will say this is the strongest conference, just a matter of opinion. But who's off? Well, who's the next player on your list? And I guess we'll get to the players that did not crack the list of this episode at the end.
Yeah, I think ACC is definitely one of the strongest. So I said Reece Beekman before. I would also say Baba Miller. He's probably somebody who, if you're listening, or watching, you're probably like, how has he not been said? He had a really strong tournament, the U19s with Spain. I really liked his game there. He looked like a totally different player than he did at FSU last year. I think he's somebody that could easily turn his stock around. He's basically a 6'11", 6'10", 7 foot, somewhere in that range. Jumbo forward. I don't even know what his position really is, but he's just a big dude doing things out there. And I think he's somebody that could gain a lot of stock really quickly in the season too, because he was suspended the first 14 games of last year.
16 games. Then he had an injury.
Yeah,
he's going to have to rebuild his stock with me. I mean, his numbers were awful. I mean, just awful. I know the suspension played a role. I know he was injured, but I think he was like 30% from the foul line. The shooting at the under 19s wasn't good to me. I think his release is low. I think in theory, he has the tools that you want and that you like. I just got to see him put it all together, because I was hyped about watching him make his debut. I was really, really excited about seeing what he could do. Florida State was bad. So I thought, okay, this is the perfect situation in a sense for a guy that's been sitting out to come in and kind of make an impact. It wasn't like he was on a team that was winning and throwing him in the lineup was going to kind of throw things off. But he just did not look good in his games. And again, I know that there were some factors behind it, but just from what I saw, I have a hard time buying his shot right now, because I think it's too low. And I think that while he does have skills, I can't figure out what is the skill set that he brings to the table that he can hang his hat on. And that's a little bit concerning to me. And if he's not able to shoot the ball, especially if his low release turns open looks into contested looks, I think that's going to impact his percentage. But the free throw shooting is a big indicator of touch. Yep. And I have real concerns about his shooting.
Yeah, I don't know how good he can be without that jump shot, and I don't buy the jump shot personally. There were some makes he had, and also his shot's just really flat. Like that, it barely clears the rim a lot of times. So there's concerns. I do think just the intrigue with the skill with the ball in his hands, and then also just the size. If he produces within the 3-point line, I think he'll do well for himself.
But what's his role?
Yeah, that's exactly where I struggle, though. I don't have an answer for that.
Yeah, because I don't know if he's going to get reps on the ball to be like the primary ball handler. And then if the shooting isn't there, here's a comparison that came to mind. I'm going to get killed for this, but I don't care. Maybe he's Cam Reddish. A guy in theory, you see the athleticism, you see the tools, you see that there's things that he does, but then you're wondering in the NBA, like, all right, what is his role? I mean, maybe he's a defender. I mean, because he has the tools, the length, and he has everything that you need to be a really good defender. But in today's NBA, if you are a great defender, but a zero on offense, it's going to be hard to get minutes, especially like in a playoff situation. And so Cam Reddish is a guy. I wasn't high on Cam Reddish. Well, I was high in high school, but then I soured on him pretty quickly. And I mean, he's struggling. I mean, even now with the Lakers, he started the last few games. His shooting splits are absolutely horrible. It was like 30, 20, 70 last time I looked. And I don't see how he's going to be in their rotation. And this is going to be what team? What, Atlanta, New York, Portland. Lakers, team 4. I could actually see Baba Miller being similar to where somebody may take him high just based off the potential upside, the physical tools, but there's just not like a defined skill set.
I think that's fair.
But now the guy that you mentioned that has a defined role, in my opinion, and a defined skill set is Reece Beekman. We know what he brings to the table. We know he can defend. I do think that there are some teams, like some playoff teams, that could use a guy like him, like in his rookie year, that he should be able to come in and contribute. And so I don't know if he'll be a first-round pick, because I just, it just seems like the longer you stay, the harder it is. But I could definitely see him being like a second-round pick that has like even if he has like a Jose Alvarado type role as a rookie, where he's playing minutes on a playoff team and playing, in their rotation, I could definitely see that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think you put him from calf to calf as a like you said, a bench guy that can come in, just defend though. Put him in Cleveland. I mean, I think he could help a lot too. I mean, they've had some perimeter defense woes early in the season. I'd love that fit. And also
Craig Porter's got to play.
Yeah, he has. Yeah, hey, shout out Craig Porter. He's nice.
Yep. But no, I think of even a team like Dallas. I mean, they've tried like Frank Ntilikina. They've tried like different guards. But if you have like a guy that can come off the bench just for a few minutes per game and just be a pest, I think that will help improve, their defense. I mean, I just think there's so many teams in the league that could use a guy like Reece Beekman.
Yeah,
watch him end up in like Denver. All right, who's the next prospect on your list?
I'm just gonna rapid fire a couple guys because I think there's 3 guys that they're all out in the southeast portion of the conference that I really like. The first one is Miles Kelly. I think he's due for a big year. Coaching change is going to help a lot. Playmaking and defense, I think, have a lot of upside. Also, jump shot is just absolutely pure. And then Wooga Poplar at Miami, hard worker. He's a shooter, really intelligent on the court. And then lastly, Matthew Cleveland, also at Miami. I like his game a lot from Florida State. I think at Miami, his game can be maximized a little bit more. He doesn't have to do as much shooting, I feel like, which is one of his big weaknesses. He can be more of that play finisher and defender to really thrive in Miami.
Yeah, another guy that similar to Baba Miller is Cleveland in a sense. You look at the physical tools and you see some skills and you're like, I want more. And maybe it's just me, but I thought Cleveland was, at least in my opinion, I thought Cleveland was a guy coming into last year was going to be, I thought he would be done with college, but I thought he was at least going to be a top 60 pick coming into last season. And maybe the change of scenery helps him out. But Wooga one, the best name in college basketball. Really good athlete, shot creator, very confident player. I wonder how much of his style of play is going to impact, because he shoots a lot of mid-range shots. And what's weird about him is I think that he has the tools to be a 3-level scorer, but he just does not get to the rim, despite the fact that he's a really good athlete. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've wondered that same thing myself, because there are flashes of it, but I've wondered why it doesn't happen consistently. I wonder if some of it's the personnel too, because I mean they had Isaiah Wong, who, like, I love the guy, but you know he took a lot of dribbles with the ball in his hand, and I think maybe that limited some of Wooga's abilities in that regard. And now that it's just Nigel Pack, who's not great at getting to the rim, I think that's going to change some stuff, and that makes a little bit more of an opening for Wooga there. But I just buy the hard work. I saw him even just I've heard things, and then also when I went to see Wake Forest play Miami in February, they beat Wake Forest pretty handily. And after the game, I saw him make, like, he was just out there. He was the only guy shooting jump shots for about 30 minutes. At one point, I saw him make 20 in a row too. So I fully buy the jump shot coming around. I thought that was just really special.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell that he's put in the work. I mean, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but I know the shooting percentage increased significantly from the year prior to last year. And if he makes a similar jump as far as like the shooting, at least the 3-point shooting, then he's in for an incredible year. But I would like to see him get to the basket, because he has the tools, athleticism, and it's like the opposite. Usually find a guy that has potential to be a 3-level scorer, but is strong as a 2-level scorer. It's usually a guy that finishes at the rim and maybe is a good 3-point shooter, but doesn't have a mid-range game, or a guy that gets to the rim but is a good pull-up shooter but doesn't have quite the range. And with Wooga, it's just he just doesn't get to the rim like I think he should, and I think he can. But who am I? This is my opinion matter. All right, is there anyone else in the ACC that you want to talk about?
I think I have a guy who I think is just such a big sleeper, and he's a freshman. I don't know if he comes out necessarily this year, but I'm going to shout him out anyways. And that's Kyshawn George at Miami.
I've been hearing his name buzzing lately.
I like his game a lot. He came over from France. He's 6'7".
He's not French.
Yeah, he was playing over in France.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, big distinction. I really just like his game. I think he's somebody that, with the size and the athleticism and the skill set, I think he's going to pop up on some NBA radars. I don't know what his volume will look like. He's another one of those guys that he just got to get the efficiency and worry about the volume later. But if he's really efficient, I think he could be a quick riser to be a darling, like a draft darling.
Yeah, he definitely has draft darling written all over him. At least Twitter draft darling.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, once again, thank you for making the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast your first listen of the day. College basketball is back. I'm excited about it. It just seems like we haven't had any games to talk about for a long time, other than, the guys that were drafted in Summer League and maybe a few summer games in Europe. But we finally have games to talk about. I'm looking forward to finding out who just comes out of nowhere, who's this year's Brandon Pajemski, who, comes back and has a great sophomore year. So I'm just looking forward to this college basketball season. But once again, it's Rafael Barlowe with Richard Stayman. We are out.